Sonic the Hedgehog is fucking epic. Yes, even the one where he turns into a werewolf. Despite the franchise's many missteps over the years, Sonic has always had a special place in my heart as the first franchise I became a lore Chad in. Just the games, though. Actually, funny story, I did read some of the Archie comics, and while I knew they had insane lore, it seemed like too much for Mini-Me to handle, so I never got anywhere past a couple of sorted issues throughout. I know this skunk guy got possessed by a wizard, and Knuckles got possessed by an echidna god. Also, I think Eggman and Robotnik are two different people, and one's a robot, but I can't remember which one. It was interesting, but not enough to try and scour my way through since I was 7 and didn't know what piracy was. But now it's time to start flexing my lore muscles once again. Because, after all these years of dry-looking Sonic games that, well, fun, I wasn't as invested in as older titles, Hollywood of all places is injecting some life back into the series. The American Sonic the Hedgehog film was really good for what it was, and as a standalone movie, it was an okay introduction to Sonic in the real world. But there was something that differentiated it from the Smurfs and Yogi Bears of old. The film also established plot elements in this new universe, plot elements that seem like they're going to be extremely important in the aptly titled sequel, Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Now, my lore skills for Sonic are a little bit rusty. You can blame lore-heavier book series like Warriors in my childhood and The Wheel of Time in my teens for that, but I think I can recall enough details off the top of my head to make a couple of predictions for not only Sonic 2, but the future of the film franchise as a whole. So if you're not deep into Sonic game lore, don't worry, I'm gonna hold your hand through all of this. But if you're planning on playing pretty much any Sonic game that's come out so far and don't want to be spoiled, then I suggest clicking off this video. I don't really know who that applied to, but you can never be sure, and trust me, I totally get not wanting to get spoiled, even if trying to piece together Sonic game lore at this point is a waste of time. I'm also going to be basing my theories off elements of the first Sonic film, of course, as well as the trailer for Sonic 2 and this unsubstantiated 4chan post I found. You should probably watch that first trailer before we dive in, since I'm going to be all over the place. Link in the description. Also, these theories aren't going to be presented in much of an order, more just a free flow of shit I've been thinking about. But we've wasted enough time as it is, so let's just get into it. Now, before we get into the new stuff getting introduced, I first want to say that it looks like human characters like Donut Lord are taking a back seat with this one. The trailer had a heavier focus on Sonic, Tails, and Eggman than it did Tom and his wife, which I think is a good thing. As for predictions, I think the film is going to have a much heavier focus on Sonic and his adventure with Tails than the human side of things. This is because of all the cool zones that have been shown in the trailer, many of which are reminiscent of Sonic Adventure. Speaking of adventure, the mission right now is a little unclear. So we see that there's this tornado full of green lightning, and from this shot of Sonic and Tails in the tornado. Hahaha, I see what you did there, filmmakers. Anyway, from this shot, we can see that it's fucking massive, with the smoke covering almost the entirety of Sonic's town. We know this is coming from Eggman and that he's got his hands on what looks to be the Master Emerald. The Master Emerald is this super powerful gemstone that acts as a buffer for the Chaos Emeralds, 7 gemstones of power in the Sonic lore. As for the overall conflict, though, I feel like we don't have enough information to piece together what exactly is going to happen. It looks like there will be some kind of worldwide chase going on, though, given the snowy area and Sonic's return to the bar from the first film. But then we also have this. This shot right here of the Master Emerald on top of a temple with green light shooting out from it. This temple looks much different than anything we'd see on Earth, especially the way the waterfalls dip toward the structure, which leads me to believe that this is Angel Island. In the games, Angel Island is home to Knuckles and his fellow Echidna tribe, a floating island whose anti-gravity is powered by the Master Emerald. Without it, the island will, over time, fall. What we see here, with the Master Emerald shooting green light out from the top of it, leads me to believe that, at some point, Sonic and the gang are able to get the Master Emerald back onto Angel Island, with that green light being the emerald restored to where it belongs and bringing the island back up again. But there is another, less positive possibility, though I want to save that for later in the video. Circling back, though, it looks a little unclear what the plot will entail just yet, so at this point, flimsy speculation is all we've got. That same level of unknown development applies to Eggman's return as well. Remember, Eggman ended up transported to that mushroom world at the end of the first movie. Given that he now has the Master Emerald and is paired up with Knuckles, though, it's safe to say that the mushroom world he ended up in was Sonic's homeworld, which I'm going to refer to as Mobius for right now, since that's usually the name given to Sonic's homeworld in cartoons and comics. So yeah, little did Sonic know that the rings he had were just going to lead him right back to Mobius if he'd gone through. It just would have taken a while for him to get back to his part of the planet, which actually makes sense for when we talk about Tails in a second, but let's finish up here with Eggman first. So Eggman ends up in this environment that's a clear homage to Mushroom Hill Zone, a forest located on Angel Island in the game Sonic and Knuckles. I think, given that Knuckles' home is Angel Island, Island, it's safe to say this mushroom forest in the movie is also on Angel Island. It would explain how Eggman ran into Knuckles and swindled the Master Emerald off him. Though there is one curious aspect to Eggman's return that I honestly have no theories about. The tornado I can understand because it's the power of the Master Emerald. Even his robots returning through a ring portal or something would make sense. He's a genius after all, he probably found a way to develop them on Mobius. But instead, we see an egg pod with Eggman inside it drop down from space. Now, the first time we see space in a Sonic game is in Sonic 2, but this trailer makes more subtle nods to another Sonic game where space is a factor, Sonic Adventure 2. Here we can see these dudes dressed in black, their outfits bearing a yellow G on them. This symbol is for G.U.N, the Guardian Units of Nations. They're a worldwide military organization who, in the games, were responsible for the deactivation of Space Colony Ark, a space station set up by Eggman's grandfather, Gerald Robotnik. Gerald was trying to cure his granddaughter, Maria, from a terminal illness through a certain project he was conducting aboard the Ark, Project Shadow. Now, given how the Sonic lore in the movies is coming together in little drips per film, I don't think they'd blow their load on Space Colony Ark and Shadow in the second film. This seems more like Easter eggs for the audience to pick up on that won't have a massive impact on the plot. But somehow, I do think another space-related location is in order, and that's the Death Egg. In Sonic 2, the game, the Death Egg is a major location, an orbital space station acting as Eggman's base of operations. It plays similar significant roles in Sonic 3 and Sonic & Knuckles, it crashing into Angel Island at the start of the third game being how Eggman meets Knuckles in the game lore. That obviously is going to be different here, but it's possible we could end up seeing the Death Egg as a significant location if Eggman is coming from space, though that theory is unfounded as of right now, and we also have no idea how the fuck Eggman got his robots, let alone a massive space station, from Mobius to Earth. So we might need to wait and see on just how involved space is in the film, especially since the rings still exist and definitely tie Mobius to Earth, probably more directly than we thought. And that leads us to my favorite character in the whole franchise, Miles Prower, also known as Tails. At the end of the first movie, Tails jumped through a ring portal into Green Hills, Montana, equipped with some kind of scanning device we're led to assume is supposed to track Sonic down. So, since that's the best assumption we can make, we'll go with that for right now. When he realizes Sonic must be close by, he says, "If these readings are accurate, he's here. I found him. I just hope I'm not too late." Now, let's overthink this for a little bit. Tails clearly has access to technology beyond anything we've seen in Sonic's world so far. All we've seen as of the first film is the hut Sonic and his mother mentor Longclaw were living in, as well as more primitive tech from the Echidna tribe hunting Sonic down. This indicates that Tails is in another part of Mobius, probably a more developed region where he can access tracking technology. How he's tracking Sonic isn't certain right now, but I'd wager it has something to do with Sonic's powers making him stand out among the more mundane creatures on Earth. We also know that Tails somehow knows who Sonic is, but given their interaction with each other on the tornado in the trailer for the second film, Sonic doesn't know who Tails is. Tails also introduces himself to Sonic as Tails, even though canonically, Tails' real name is always Miles Prower, and in the games, Tails is a nickname that Sonic gives him. Now, there are two possibilities here. One is that the trailer is cut to make it look like Tails introduces himself like that to Sonic, but in reality, Sonic actually gives him the nickname while they're in the tornado. Or, someone on Mobius gave Tails that nickname, and he uses it when introducing himself to Sonic. But here's the thing. The only other person on Mobius that we know of who even knows of Sonic's existence, who would be considered an ally, is Longclaw. But Longclaw is dead, right? Well, when it comes to fiction, especially stories with a lot of moving parts, it's never safe to assume a character is dead unless you see a body. So, despite the dire situation of Longclaw getting charged by the Echidna tribe before sealing Sonic away on Earth, I think Longclaw survived the encounter. It's really the only way Tails could know Sonic exists, given that Longclaw is Sonic's only ally on Mobius. So, somehow, I think Longclaw met Tails at some point and has now recruited him to find Sonic. But Longclaw also wanted Sonic sealed away on Earth to protect him. So why would Longclaw want Sonic to come back? It's simple, and it all resonates from Tails' last line, "I just hope I'm not too late." Something bad has happened on Mobius, something that likely involves Dr. Eggman. Here in this shot, we can see some new designs for Eggman's robots, this time looking more like the Badniks in the games. And in the games, Badniks were powered by small animals that Eggman kidnapped. So here's one of my big tinfoil hat theories for this movie. After surviving the Echidna attack, Longclaw somehow met up with Tails and somehow got a hold of higher technology, likely in a different area of Mobius. After Eggman became more powerful thanks to having the Master Emerald, he used his newfound power to conquer a good portion of Mobius with his robot army, enslaving smaller creatures to power his machines. Using the rings and whatever newfound tech they have, which, come to think of it, could even be Eggman tech for all we know, Longclaw sent Tails to Earth to find Sonic and bring him home. Somehow, Sonic is the key to all of this. And honestly, I think I know how. Because if you thought all of that just now was as tinfoil as I did, then you'd better get your conspiracy theory caps nice and snug on your heads. Because this one is going to be a doozy. So as it stands right now, Knuckles is going to be acting as an antagonist working alongside Eggman in the film. Knuckles also has powers of his own, making him a pretty good match for Sonic. But we also know something else, something very important about Knuckles. He's an echidna. He's part of the same tribe of warriors that were hunting Sonic down in the first film. But why? Why would the echidnas go out of their way to hunt him down? Well, I think all of this has to do with prophecy. You see, at the start of the Sonic 3 game, the Death Egg crash lands into Angel Island. When Knuckles witnesses this, he believes it to be a massive egg from a dragon. He believes this because inscribed on the Master Emerald's altar is a prophecy that a fallen dragon egg would bring about the end of the world. Eggman uses this prophecy to his advantage, claiming that he is a scientist there on the island to study the Death Egg, and that Sonic and Tails were on their way to Angel Island to steal the Master Emerald. Knuckles goes to square off against the two of them, while Eggman rebuilds the Death Egg. So the groundwork is there for prophecy to somehow play a role in how Eggman tricks Knuckles into helping him. And I think it all ties back together with why the Echidna tribe is trying to kill Sonic. Because, make no mistake, those were bows and fucking arrows meant for a blue toddler. They were trying to kill Sonic. And I think they were trying to kill him because of a prophecy. Now, I want to direct your attention to a 4chan post from all the way back in February 2020, a couple days after the first film dropped. Now, the relevance of this post and its accuracy is obviously up in the air. It is 4chan after all. But also remember, this film was finished in 2019 outside of fixing Sonic's hideous original design, which means this post could contain some level of accuracy. This post, as it turns out, is a supposed list of film pitches that the creators of the Sonic movie made during the redesign phase. In relation to Sonic 2, the post reads the initial pitch. Sonic 2 introduces Tails formally, who is tracking Chaos Energy. He befriends Sonic and convinces him to help search for the Chaos Emeralds when they learn that Robotnik is searching for the same thing, who has tricked Knuckles into helping him. So we already know that some of these plot elements have taken shape, albeit with the Master Emerald as the main focus instead of the Chaos Emeralds. Though maybe the reason why there are so many zones in the film is because Sonic and Tails go looking for the Chaos Emeralds to try and counteract the power of the Master Emerald. And this actually seems likely, huh? Going into writing this predictions video, I wasn't so sure, but now that we're here, and despite the lack of real evidence outside of a 2-year-old 4chan post, this could hold true given the plot elements in the film so far. But putting that aside for right now, we see that Tails is tracking Chaos Energy, which would mean that, in finding Sonic using that device he has, he was able to track Chaos Energy in Sonic as well, which would explain what Sonic's powers in these movies are, and could later explain why Sonic will be able to interact with the Chaos Emeralds to go into Supersonic mode. But Sonic's Chaos Energy also explains why the Echidna tribe would be hunting Sonic down, and anyone else who knows the basics of the games has probably already figured out where I'm going with this. The main conflict of Sonic's first proper 3D game, Sonic Adventure, centered around this guy. This is Chaos. In the games, Chaos was once a gentle creature that watched over a colony of Chow on Angel Island long ago. Chaos was also the original guardian of the Master Emerald. Eventually, after an attack by the Echidna clan, Chaos was consumed with fury large enough to threaten the entire planet with his power. Chaos killed most of the Echidnas before one of them, Knuckles' ancestor Tikal, sealed herself and Chaos into the Master Emerald. The plot of Sonic Adventure centers around Eggman reviving Chaos in order to conquer the world, which goes awry since what's become a literal Chaos God can't be controlled by a guy in a flying machine. As his name implies, Chaos is also associated with Chaos Energy, garnering more power in different forms the more Chaos Emeralds he manages to absorb. Now, it's safe to say the whole Chaos part of Chaos, if translated into the movies, would stay the same, but Sonic is now also an explicit conductor of what we can assume to be Chaos Energy too, if that 4chan post is to be believed. So my overall theory hinges on the idea that, in the film universe, Sonic and Chaos both emit Chaos Energy. As far as we know in the movies, the Echidna tribe is still alive. Since they were hunting Sonic as a child, and it really hasn't been that long since he's been on Earth, it's safe to assume that Knuckles' tribe isn't entirely dead, but I do think they expect to be wiped out soon. Remember, Sonic 3 established the Master Emerald could be tied to prophecy to a certain extent. So what if, in the film universe, there is a prophecy associated with a blue creature capable of harnessing Chaos Energy, bringing about the end of the world? What if that blue creature is Chaos, but the Echidna tribe thinks it's Sonic? Now, in Sonic Adventure, Knuckles didn't initially know the history surrounding Chaos and the Master Emerald, so much so that Eggman managed to turn him against Sonic again for a brief second or two. In the games, Chaos was sealed away in the Master Emerald thousands of years ago. If that's the same case in the film, with the added bonus of the tribe surviving into the present day, then it makes sense as to why they think Sonic is actually Chaos as prophesized. After thousands of years, it became like a game of telephone, with no one remembering Chaos is actually stuck inside the Master Emerald, and not some speed demon Hedgehog. I think the reason why the Echidnas were hunting Sonic in the first movie, and why Knuckles has agreed to help Eggman in the second, is because they think Sonic is Chaos. Little do they realize that the real danger to them is lurking inside the Master Emerald, waiting for someone to let him loose. But again, I don't think the filmmakers are going to blow their load this early in the film franchise. I don't think we're going to see Chaos in the second film, but I do think we're going to get pretty obvious teasers that he exists. Or who knows, maybe we will. Maybe the green light emanating from the Master Emerald on top of that temple there is Eggman summoning Chaos. Personally, I think that would be a bit much, but only time will tell. Because there is another factor to Eggman's seemingly remade robot army that we need to consider. Eggman's army being intact and more threatening than ever before implies the Doctor gained a lot of power while on Mobius. The 4chan post actually mentions this as an idea, saying the producers of the film pitched an idea for a solo Eggman movie. Eggman, a solo Robotnik film, which is part prequel showing Robotnik growing up, and part sequel showing Robotnik conquering a world called Mobius. Now, whether this unannounced film goes into production remains to be seen, but given the accuracy of the description of Sonic 2 almost 2 years prior to anything being revealed, I think it's safe to say we can at least trust these ideas are being tossed around in private. And I do believe, given the amount of power Eggman seems to have this time around, that he did in fact conquer some parts of Mobius. But if that's the case, then why would Knuckles go out of his way to help Eggman? Eggman is clearly an extraterrestrial threat to Mobius, so it wouldn't make sense for Knuckles to trust him. Unless, of course, Eggman was there under the guise of protecting Mobius. Remember, Sonic and presumably Chaos aren't the only blue things imbued with Chaos energy anymore. Eggman now has one of Sonic's quills, which at the end of the first film, we see is still glowing with Chaos energy. You see, there's one little part of that 4chan post I left out regarding Sonic 2, concept art for another character that was allegedly submitted as part of the pitch, Metal Sonic. Now, in the games, Metal Sonic debuted in a spin-off title, Sonic CD, which has a really convoluted plot that I'm not going to get into, namely because it involves a mystical planet called Little Planet and the Time Stones which can be used to control time. I don't think any of that is going to apply to the second movie. Instead, I think the character of Metal Sonic will be combined with that of Mecha Sonic, another robotic version of Sonic that appears at the end of Knuckles' storyline in Sonic and Knuckles. I think the second film will use the concept of Mecha Sonic and just combine it with Metal Sonic's character and with the Chaos energy flowing through the quill Eggman is in possession of. Now, this is going to get a little fanficky if it hasn't already, so just bear with me while I explain. Eggman ends up on Angel Island at the end of the first movie. He starts developing new tech because he's an ultra genius. At some point, he comes across the Echidna tribe and learns about a prophecy regarding a blue creature imbued with Chaos energy that seeks to wipe out the tribe. Capitalizing on this, Eggman creates Metal Sonic, a blue creature imbued with Chaos energy because of the real Sonic's quill. He terrorizes the tribe with it for a little bit, controlling Metal Sonic without their knowledge, before doing something that convinces them that he can protect them from Metal Sonic. Eggman then conquers a good portion of Mobius under the guise of protecting the Echidna tribe from Metal Sonic, who he convinces them is the real Sonic. So, when Eggman has substantially grounded himself in Mobius, he recruits Knuckles in the use of the Master Emerald to get revenge on Sonic, under the guise of saving the tribe. It's a little complicated and plenty of holes can be poked in the theory, especially since we don't have any real confirmation of Metal Sonic just yet, but I do genuinely believe this will be the plot, and that eventually Sonic and Knuckles will team up to defeat Metal Sonic, likely with the power of the Chaos Emerald Sonic and Tails collect over the course of the movie. As for Knuckles being able to use Chaos energy, I don't really have a prediction for that one. I guess he's just a little special. But I do have a couple other things about both this movie and future films that I think would be cool. Going back to the 4chan post, there was one other film allegedly pitched during the Sonic Face edits. This was Shadow the Hedgehog, a solo film for Shadow that introduces him for inclusion in future films. I actually think it would be pretty neat to have a semi-tragic story about Shadow somehow being created by Gerald Robotnik. A movie like that might even explain why there seems to be a connection between the rings, Mobius, and Earth, since Shadow's appearance would indicate him to have some level of Mobian genetics in the film universe. So yeah, if this post ends up being true, I'd really love to see a solo Shadow film act as backstory for him prior to, say, a loose adaptation of Sonic Adventure 2. I also want to go back to the Time Stones, because while I don't think much of Sonic's CD will translate into the movie universe, I do think the Time Stones have their place in the world if the writers remember them for a long enough time. This is because, since the Time Stones can be used to travel through time at will, they could be used way later in the story if they ever decide to do a very, very loose adaptation of Sonic 06. In that game, Silver the Twink Hog goes back in time to stop his future from getting destroyed by a fire demon god thing called Iblis, which puts him into conflict with Sonic and friends. So it could be a useful concept for the producers to keep in their back pockets to maybe spice up the plot of that game's adaptation if they ever get that far into the game's timeline, assuming they'll be loosely following the games. Who knows where this new continuity will take us. And I want to leave you guys with one last bit of fanfic tier bullshit, just because I think it would be cool to see. Sonic the Comic is a British comic published by Fleetway Editions back in the 90s. It featured some differing concepts from a lot of other Sonic media. One of those concepts was how their version of Super Sonic worked. In the comics, Super Sonic is tied more to the Chaos part of the Chaos Emeralds than being another form of Sonic. He's a demon-like entity that takes control of Sonic's body when he goes super, acting really sadistic and wanting to wreak havoc on everything he can. I don't know, I just kind of like the idea of Chaos energy actually being chaotic, so the idea of Super Sonic being this evil split personality that Sonic has to overcome sounds kind of cool. I really don't think they do that in the movie. It might be a little too much too quick, but at the very least I do think it would be cool to explore at some point. But that's just me, and I think these predictions have been thorough enough. So yeah, those are my predictions and hopes for Sonic 2 and the future of the Sonic film franchise. Depending on how much stuff I get wrong once the inevitable second trailer drops, I might make another one of these in the future. But as it stands right now, I'm hoping I'm right on a lot of points and genuinely just can't wait to see the movie. I mean, I'm abandoning the trad Viking action film on opening day to see Sonic the Hedgehog. If that doesn't tell you how high my hopes are for this film, I don't know what will. And whatever happens, I'm just glad to see Sonic getting resuscitated by America of all places. Hopefully the direction these films are going in will be enough to make Sonic the Hedgehog remembered for doing what Nintendo don't for good reasons once again.